Thank you for tuning in. You're watching the Property Guide on ET Now. This is your one-stop guide to property investments in the country. Now, if you have feedback or any questions about buying a home, getting a home loan, or even a legal roadblock that you've hit about buying real estate in this country, write to us. Email ID is at the bottom of your screen. You can reach us on the Property Guide at et-now.com. Remember, you'll also find a copy of this show on our Facebook page where you can leave a message for us if you please. And you can reach me personally on Twitter. It would be our pleasure to hear from you. Well, on the show this week, with major national level developers entering the affordable housing segment, we'll tell you if there are any interesting investment options for you. We'll also discuss investment options in Bangalore and Hyderabad. Joining us in the studio today, Ghulam Zia is the Executive Director of Knight Frank India and Jayshree Kurup, the Head of Content and Research at magicbricks.com. Well, Ghulam, tell me this. Obviously, this new government has made an announcement that they're looking at a home for every Indian before our 75th anniversary of our independence. Now, that would mean about 20 million urban homes. Is that the new affordable housing segment that everybody's excited about?
Well, all this while, the word affordable housing is spoken about only in the times of downturns. When the normal reality is not selling, developers start talking about affordable housing. Now, in terms of sheer size of it, you know, the typical development of real estate that we see, the typical developers and the whole real estate industry does not cater to even 5 to 6% of the overall housing requirement. So if you look at it, the rest of it, which is more than 90%, is unattended. It's hardly any stuff, any home coming in that section to cater to that requirement. Well, you may say that more than 50% of that could be below poverty line, etc. But still that leaves about 40% of requirement of housing which can be catered to, which is in the range of, you know, 5 to 25, 30 lakh kind of a price bracket, for which there is hardly any taker. There's hardly any developer coming forward. So recent times when we've started looking at these newfound attraction from the corporate developers, from well-known developers to come on affordable housing, it's only because, you know, to a certain extent, the other market is drying up. So there is a focus on this market.
But tell us why developers tend to stay away from this 5 to 25 lakh rupee band that you're talking about. Obviously, when you're talking about the big cities, land alone adds up to a lot, and then the margins are smaller. But tell us what is going to take to attract developers to this segment?
Well, it's a multi-pronged issue that we are talking about. One very, very prominent one is, of course, the low margin game that you're talking about. And since most of the existing developers are very much experienced in catering to the other side of housing, like for example, if I have to give you an example, in Mumbai today we see those high-end sky rises that we are talking about, and the cost of construction for these houses is actually 6,000 to 7,000 rupees a square feet, just the cost of construction. And if I talk about the 10% contingency amount that they set aside, that itself is 600 to 700 rupees, which could all you know be a cost of construction of an affordable housing. So the engineers, the whole staff, the whole organization actually takes that 10% of contingencies as 700 to 800 rupees is something which you can make or break an affordable housing project. So the whole change of mindset is required, and we require a completely different set of people to handle this problem of affordable housing. That's the very big problem. And then, of course, there are many issues, financing for those affordable housing, because most of these buyers don't have the official and proper means of financing these houses and so on and so forth. Multiple problems, but then all these problems can be sorted out.
Well, Jayshree, if we come back to the basic question here, we know that Deepak Parekh once said that an affordable home is something that adds up to 5 times your annual income as a family. Do you think that's a good definition of an affordable home? Because we don't know right now whether to define it based on the size of the home, on the ticket size, depending on urban, semi-urban. What's a good way to define an affordable home?
We've been running a series of surveys from 2006 onwards, so we have a very good idea of what the consumers want. Consumers, you know, there is affordable housing in every category. So if you are talking about bulk of it is in the 5 to 20 lakh, like Ghulam said, and that is a completely underserviced category in our country. Land values are high, the cost of construction, as Zia said, is high, but the point is that to make those houses affordable in that 5 to 20 lakh, and you'll have to go for the scale. If you want to go for scale, you have to go for speed, you have to go for off-site precast construction technologies, which the world is moving towards. For some reason, we have not either focused on it or even given any kind of incentives, government incentives, to go into prefab so that you could have off-site building and it comes and gets assembled on the site. That gives speed, that gives scale, and that gives brings down the cost of construction. Now remember that when you sell an affordable housing unit, you are getting less money into the kitty, but you're spending almost as much for marketing, which is why developers would rather sell 3 big units than 20 smaller units, because the cost of marketing is about the same. This housing, unless it, the scale kicks in, I think it will only work if you give added incentive.
Well, Gulam, tell me this. We know that Mahindra's affordable housing arm is now looking at a project in Bohisar, outside of Mumbai. It's also the same location that Tata Housing's affordable housing arm is also considering a project in. What sort of buzz is there on the ground about these projects? Do you see these projects as, growing into being some sort of investment options?
Well, if I once again turn the clock back, there was a time when Virar was supposed to be back of beyond because of lack of proper rail transportations, etc. Only 2 rail corridors catering to Virar's traffic, etc. Then all of a sudden Virar now has 4 tracks, and now all these areas like Boisar and Palghar, etc. have assumed the position which Virar had perhaps about 8 to 10 years back. So it is pushing off the boundaries of the city, which is happening, and because of which these locations, then why Boisar alone? Because Boisar also has an inherent demand. Boisar in the vicinity has a good size of industrial units, and it has that latent demand existing there. So for somebody like a Tata Housing or for many others who are looking at this stretch, it's kind of a de-risking where local demand exists. At the same time, because of these big brand names going there, the people who can't afford houses even in Virar would be pulled into these locations like Boisar and etc. etc. So that overall is the strategy behind going to such places, so that they create a good branding for that location. And because infrastructure, let's face it, that the road infrastructure is now good, railway connectivity is good. So there is a reason for somebody who's perhaps working in say Andheri region, Andheri Goregaon region, to buy a house in Boisar and comfortably travel in a matter of an hour and a half from the place of work, which was what Virar was earlier.
So tell me this, now for somebody who's young, living in maybe a Mumbai or a Bangalore, one of these cities, looking at making an investment in real estate at this point, maybe not actually living in those homes, does it make sense to buy these affordable branded houses in Bohisar from Godrej, from Tata? We know Purvankara is doing something like this in Bangalore as well. It's a fair drive away from the city. Does it make sense for me to assume that I can buy it right now, maybe, or sell it in 5 years, 6 years time at a profit?
For sure, for sure. 2 things. First of all, I'll talk about what Virar used to be about 10 years back, about 1200 to 1500 rupees a square foot. Today Virar is 5000 to 6000 rupees. Number 1. Number 2 is the same Boisar projects, whether Tata Housing or the others, were launched actually sub 1500 rupees, 1450 to 1500 rupees a square foot, etc. And today are almost touching 3000 rupees mark. So there is always a case for investment, but unfortunately the other darker side of this whole situation is that the same 1500 rupees which was sold in Boisar at 3000 today is unaffordable to many of them. So when an investor comes in, and obviously the requirement or the need for a better return will in over a period of time will push the properties once again beyond the affordable limits of that region.
Well, Jayashree, tell me this. Now, obviously, if I'm going to buy a home from one of these brands, whether it's Purvankara, whether it's Godrej, whether it's Tata, I'm going to assume that there's a certain type of quality that will be made available to me. But if I'm buying between the 10 and 25 lakh rupee bracket, what's different about these homes? Where are the margins being made for these companies? What should I expect if I'm going in to buy an affordable home?
You see, the cost comes when you go for the brands. Now, there is another layer of, the building materials where you get good quality building materials, maybe not from the best brand, or it is a little scaled down. But if executed well, they give the user almost a similar quality of housing, and the entire complex has to be maintained such. So the common facilities, if you have in a luxury housing, if 20 people are sharing the facilities, in affordable housing maybe 100 people are sharing the housing, but the facilities still need to be there. You can't take away all the frills, because today buying a house is actually a dream and an aspiration. You can't take that aspiration dream part of it away from the housing and just offer a housing unit. One more thing I would like to mention here, Faye, you asked whether it is a good idea to buy an affordable unit today and later sell it for profit. We now are going into a regime where infrastructure, connectivity, the quality of urban fabric is being attended to, and I would say that if you're buying today, please buy in places where you know that there is a future for the transport connectivity. If there is transport connectivity, you can actually buy for self-use and not as an investment, so that you can sell later and come closer to the city. Like Ghulam said, Virar was connected to the city, and today Virar has gone up the ladder, right? To buy in places where you actually see that you will be able to live. By the time the house is ready, it will be 3 to 5 years. In 3 to 5 years, if the rest of the infrastructure comes in, I think that is a good affordable unit. You're paying less. By the time the house is ready, you know that it is already going to be, livable. And another 2 years after the house is livable, the values will go up, and you've actually made a good investment. You've actually made a killing.
All right, so remember, if you are looking at buying an affordable home, consider the infrastructure that's going to connect that neighborhood to the rest of the city, and of course consider the brand that you're going to be using. You can write to us if you have any other questions. Let's take a few more questions in this segment. Well, Alan has written in, he's looking to buy an investment right now with a budget of 40 lakh rupees. He's zeroed in on 2 homes. Both of them are 2-bedroom homes. There's the Virar Mayfair Gardens in Virar West. It's a resale property. It's 5 years old. And there's Nasik, Indranagar, Vascon Vista Phase 1 or 2 at Tagore Nagar. He wants to know, among the 2 options, which one do you think will offer him better capital appreciation right now, Nasik or Virar?
The urbanization of Virar, I would say, is a few notches higher than that of Nasik. While Nasik has its own industrial demand drivers, agrarian society and so on and so forth, and even the infrastructure improving, etc. But still Virar, due to its proximity to the financial capital of the country, would still have a few, would I say, notches higher in terms of return expectations compared to Nasik. So I would say my money is on Virar.
All right, so we hope that helps. Remember, if you have a question about buying a home, write to us. Email ID is at the bottom of your screen. Very quick break, but when we come back, we'll talk about options in Bangalore and Hyderabad. Don't go anywhere. All right, welcome back. You're watching The Property Guide in ET. Now, both of our guests are still with us, helping us make smart decisions when it comes to buying property. It's time to answer a few more questions. Now, Shadab has written in, he wants to buy a studio apartment in the India Bulls building in Panvel. He has a budget of 26 lakh rupees. He intends to buy this property purely as an investment. He wants to know if it's a good option. He wants to know what sort of price it would fetch in about 5 years and what the rental returns would be. Ghulam, there's been a lot of speculation about that India Bulls Panvel project. It's been delayed. Also in terms of, it's not really Panvel, it's new Panvel, it's outside of Panvel. If we're talking about infrastructure, like you mentioned in the previous segment, how would you rate this project in terms of infrastructure reaching it and it becoming part of the metro?
Well, first of all, let me tell you that a lot of price appreciation in the vicinity has happened purely speculatively, with expectations of airport coming up. And every time we discuss this with markets, they expect that the airport will be around in the next couple of years, but then the airport is as close or far in terms of date of completion as it was, say, about 5 years back. So that perhaps also explains why the appreciation in this market is not as good as many other places that we have seen. But going forward, because of a huge amount of disappointment that the airport hasn't really seen the light of the day, it still is not a favorable location for investment, and also because it has already reached almost doubled up, etc. So from here, where would it go is another big question. Now, in terms of infrastructure, many things are expected to happen. When the airport comes up, of course, the metro is supposed to connect it. Then the Trans-Harbour link is expected to get ready in the meanwhile, and so on and so forth. So there are many of these things which are actually shaping up. Like even the Bhiwandi-Alibag bypass, which will cut across the whole city and directly connect through the airport into Alibag also. Many of these projects which are shaping up, however, taking longer than expected. And honestly, the way I look at it, many of those benefits have already been squeezed to the last drop. So I don't see much of upside in at least a short period of time, unless and until we really see an up and running airport, unless and really see the metros running.
So you're saying don't buy right now then?
I would have my concerns.
All right, don't buy right now. Let's take another question. Anthony has written in. He says, please give me a few good projects and locations in Bangalore for an investment. I have a budget of 1 crore rupees. That's a nice budget to have in Bangalore. Jayashree, where would you recommend he starts looking?
We are giving him about 4 picks. One is Banerghatta Road, where he should be able to get about 1600 to 2300 square feet, plenty of good builders, and you should be able to get, roughly about 85 to 90 lakh, you should be able to get it here. If you look at Whitefield, you have about 1300 to about 2000 square feet, depending on the developer. 86 lakh to 95 lakh is the range on the site. Yelahanka, you get about 1700 to 1850 square feet, and you have about 80 to 90 lakh is your budget. And if you look at Sarjapur Road, you're getting about 1400 to 1550. So really your budget is good. You can get lots of options. We've picked up the top 4 as we saw it, and there's a range of developers. You have from Prestige and Brigade on Whitefield to Banerghatta Road. You have Yelahanka, M&N Infrastructure. Lots of options here, and lots of properties. You just have to make your choice depending on your preferences, but do visit the locations, do your research before you buy, because you've got a good budget and you've got lots of options, so it's a good idea to go and do your personal research.
All right, and once you've narrowed down your list, you can feel free to get back in touch with us if you want more help. We have another question from Kanak, who's written in, planning to buy a 3-bedroom apartment in Crown Constructions in Nacharan in Hyderabad. He wants to know if it's a good option, given the fact there's a metro coming up in Habasiguda. Are there better options in the city? What would you say, Ghulam? Is that a good option?
Well, Nacharam so far is not really the most favored location in Hyderabad. But that metro connectivity that we're talking about will change the picture a bit. However, as I always maintain that in Hyderabad, transportation from point A to point B is not that much of a problem because of existing network of roads, etc. I would say it's one of the top 2 cities in India to have that kind of a road network, etc. So I don't think connectivity improving will have a great impact on the property. I would still feel that economic driver will still be taking a top priority if I have to look at the appreciation of a property price. So I would still, because Hyderabad is known for its service industry, for IT, ITS, etc. I would still look for areas closer to Madhapur, Gachibowli and all those areas where the concentration of the entire service industry exists.
Well, Jayashree, from what he's going to be spending to buy a 3-bedroom at Crown Constructions in Nacharam, would he be able to afford something closer to Gachibowli or Madhapur?
At 60 lakh, I think, yes, he should be able to get in the periphery of Madhapur and Gachibowli. But I have a slightly different view about Nacharam here, Faye. If you look at it, its facilities are all in place. Though it is not as hot as Gachibowli or Madhapur, we had asked Magic Bricks users to rate localities. And Nacharam has done fairly well from the user rating point of view. Users have given it a 4.3 out of 5, which is a good rating from the user perspective, and this is completely unsolicited. So users who stay in the locality are giving this rating. Also, this is the only branded property in this locality. All others are society apartments. So probably the average in this Nacharam locality is 3200 to about 3700. This project is at 3750. It's a little priced a little higher, but I would say that it is premium in that locality, and it is also giving a rental return of about 13,500 to about 17,500. So I wouldn't say don't buy Nacharam. If that's his area of choice, I would say it's not a bad choice.
All right, of course, you can consider all of the advice you've been given and write back to us if you need more help. Time for a very short break. When we come back, we'll give you some investment options in Chennai and Jaipur. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching the Property Guide in ET Now. Both of our guests are still with us and we're helping you make smart decisions when it comes to buying property. I have a question from Rohan who's written in. He wants to invest in the Godrej Palm Grove project in Chennai. He wants to know if what the pros and cons are of the project right now and if he should go ahead. Jayashree, you've been looking at that project lately. Should he go ahead and buy?
Buying is his choice. I'll give the details. If you look at a 2 BHK, he's getting about 1187 to 1222 square feet apartments at about 45 to 46 lakh. If you look at a 3 BHK, you can get a 1426 to about 1489 square feet apartment at 55 to 58 lakh. So the options are there. This project has many good features. The apartments face the Chembarambakam Lake, which is ensures a good view. You have a fully approved project by the CMDA. You have a certified gold rating by the Indian Green Building Council. You have, the area is connected to the industrial and educational belt. So it has certain drivers. It is located on the NH4, which is the Bangalore highway. So good connectivity there. Construction is by L&T and the possession is in 2015. The project is going fairly well on schedule. So you see, it's the first residential project in Chennai by Godrej, and I always believe that a big developer who goes into a city and the first project normally does a really good job with it. So should he buy it? I would say that it's 14 towers of about 19 floors each. It's a good brand, and the locality has certain positive features. I would say please go ahead.
So go ahead. You have 2 thumbs up there. Let's take another question. Meena Bhattacharya has written in. She bought a plot of land in Vinayak City in Shikhar Road in Jaipur about 6 years ago. She wants to know whether to hold on to this property as there hasn't been too much development at Vinayak City or the surrounding area. Ghulam, what would you recommend she does?
So just to give you a background about Shikhar Road. Shikhar Road is, as it's also known as NH11, used to be more industrial in nature, and even the vicinity getting into the city is also industrial estate, etc. existing. But about 7-8 years back, it started changing users, and initially it was more preferred for personal farmhouses, etc. So there were lots of farmhouses, perhaps as an answer to the MG Road, Mehroli Gurgaon Road of Delhi. However, it didn't really pick up. On the other side, you had Alwar Road or Ajmer Road, etc., who are doing fantastic. On the other side also, the NH8, which is the connectivity between Delhi and Ajmer, has also, because of its alignment on Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor, has started doing wonderfully well. So you had places like Neemrana, etc. between Delhi and Jaipur shaping up as investment regions, etc. So because of which, those are the areas which have flourished much more than Shikhar. And on Shikhar, also largely because JDA has been selling very actively, huge amount of land parcels keep coming in market very often, because of which the supply of finished goods, whether it is residential or whatsoever, has been huge compared to the demand. And hence, not much of development has been happening on this because of demand-supply issues. So if the question is, if not Shikhar Road, where else? I would say at the moment, because Shikhar Road is not showing any positive return even in times to come, I would rather pull out of Shikhar Road and look at investing somewhere else, whether it is Delhi-Jaipur highway, which is NH8, or perhaps Ajmer highway. One of these places would make much more sense than Shikhar Road.
If you have any questions for our experts, email ID on your screen. Jayashree and Ghulam, thank you so much for spending time with us this week and answering all of our questions. Thank you for watching. Remember, stay in touch. It's a pleasure to hear from you.